With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason in Washington. Secretary of State Pompeo, meeting in Seoul with top South Korean and Japanese diplomats, says the U.S. will not budge on its insistence that North Korea get rid of all of its nukes before getting any sanctions relief.
The top U.S. diplomat is refuting a claim by North Korea's state media that President Trump and Kim Jong-un agreed to a step-by-step process, phases of dismantling North Korea's nuclear program.
Complete denuclearization, only then will there be relief from the sanctions.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo insists that any moves by Pyongyang would have to be verifiable, echoed by South Korea's foreign minister.
A new beginning towards a denuclearized and peaceful Korean peninsula.
Pompeo says he hopes the U.S. and North Korea can write a new chapter of history, but the administration's going into the deal with eyes wide open. Jackie Quinn, Washington.
GOP support for a Republican president, in this case Donald Trump, seems to be making outgoing Republican Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee a bit uncomfortable. In Corker's words, it's not a good place for any party to end up with a cult-like situation. Corker's had a sometimes contentious relationship with President Trump. Instead of 3 increases, the Federal Reserve now expects to hike interest rates 4 times this year. The forecast comes on the heels of the Fed's latest rate hike, a modest quarter-point increase in its key short-term interest rate. Also at SRNnews.com, the Justice Department's internal watchdog is about to release its much-anticipated report on the FBI's handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation, the report to be released later today. On Wall Street this morning, stock futures are in the red. Dow futures down about a dozen points, NASDAQ futures off 12 points as well, and S&P futures currently down 1 point. This is SRN News. Will Christian voters turn out this fall?
A new study conducted by the American Culture and Faith Institute says it's a mixed bag. The most conservative and engaged of Christian voters are expected to get to the polls in large numbers for the midterm elections, but more casual believers are not expected to turn out in great numbers. Despite the importance of midterm elections, they historically draw a smaller percentage of eligible voters across the board than do presidential elections. Michael Harrington, SRN News.
A central Indiana school district has officially accepted the resignation of a teacher who disagreed with a policy compelling teachers to address transgender students by their preferred name rather than their birth name. The Brownsburg Community School Corporation accepted John Klug's resignation at a school board meeting Monday, despite his attempt to rescind the resignation. Klug was an orchestra teacher at Brownsburg High School. This is SRN News. The shooting of House Majority Whip Steve Scalise and others at a congressional baseball practice a year ago has Republican lawmakers talking about protecting gun rights.
Republican Congressman Brad Wenstrup of Ohio says if 2 Capitol Police officers were not armed at the GOP practice, you might have seen 20 dead people. The sentiment is widespread among Republicans. Scalise of Louisiana said the baseball practice shooting deepened my appreciation for the Second Amendment because it was people with guns who saved my life and every other member out there. Scalise suffered life-threatening injuries but is expected in uniform Thursday at the annual congressional game. Keith Peters, Washington.
Apple is closing a security gap and allowed outsiders to pry personal information from locked iPhones without a password. The change will thwart law enforcement agencies. They've been exploiting the vulnerability to collect evidence in criminal investigations. More details at srnnews.com.
Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
And all was Benjamin Franklin wise.
So you actually think electricity can pass through metal? Ha! Ben Franklin, go fly a kite.
Excellent idea. Where are my keys?
Besides the bifocals, Ben invented the Franklin stove,
the
odometer, and the lightning rod. Ingenuity, pass it on. From the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com.
From Audioboom comes Covert, a new podcast that delves into the murky world of spies, soldiers, and top-secret military operations. I'm Jamie Rennell, and together we'll discover the real stories of history's greatest classified missions, told by the operatives, soldiers, and journalists who experienced it firsthand. Follow Covert on Spotify or subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you find your favorite shows.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. A strong storm rolled through the Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania area last night, knocking down trees, buildings, and power lines, and flipping over cars. No word on any injuries. Apple is closing a security gap that allows access to personal information from locked iPhones without a password. Democrats in Congress are demanding information on the location of children who've been separated from parents trying to illegally cross the Mexican border into the U.S. Connecticut Democrat Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro.
We are not going to let this administration steal the soul of this country or steal this American dream.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will brief Chinese officials in Beijing today on the denuclearization agreement between the U.S. and North Korea.
We're going to get complete denuclearization, and only then will there be relief from the sanctions.
Comcast has made a $65 billion offer for Fox assets. I'm Rita Foley.
It is a period of civil war. Again. Rebel emissary Plek Dexeter and his crew travel the farthest reaches of the galaxy to explore astounding new worlds and meet weird bug creatures and stuff. This is Mission to Zix.
Mission to Zix, an improvised science fiction podcast. That's Zix, C-Y-X-X. New episodes every Wednesday.
They were outnumbered.
Ready.
Out-equipped.
Aim.
They had no chance of winning.
Fire.
But they had one huge advantage. General George Washington.
The fate of unborn millions will now depend, under God, on the courage and conduct of this army. We have to resolve to conquer or die.
Just as the leadership of one man helped form a nation, today leadership can transform the world. Leadership is in you. Now pass it on from passiton.com.
With the RFD Ag Market Summary for this Thursday morning, I'm Jim Taylor. Corn slightly lower, beans double-digit lower, wheat also double-digit lower on Wednesday. July corn closing at $3.76, down 1.5. September corn down 1 1/4, $3.85.5. December corn $3.97, down 1 1/4. July beans closing at $9.36, down 18. August beans down 17 3/4, $9.41 3/4. September beans $9.48 1/4, down 17. July wheat closing at $5.16.5, down 18. September wheat down 17 1/4, $5.32 3/4. December wheat $5.56, down 16 1/4. July bean meal $3.47.70, down 5.80. July bean oil $30.08. That's up 3 cents in current electronic overnight trading. July corn is down 3. September corn down 3 1/4. December corn down 3 1/4. $3.93 3/4. July beans in the overnight down a penny. August beans down 3/4. September beans down 3/4. $9.47.5. July wheat in the overnight down 8. September wheat down 7.5. December wheat down 7 3/4. $5.48 1/4. The outside markets, August Brent crude oil 76.74, up 86 cents. The August gold contract up 5.70 this morning, 13.07 even. In the livestock market, June lean hogs $81 even, up 47 cents. July lean hogs up 132, 82.77. June live cattle 107.92, down 60 cents. August live cattle down 40 cents, 103.90. August feeder cattle 145.65, down 15 cents. September feeder cattle down 15 cents, 146.67. Illinois direct barrels and gilts trading $1 higher on Wednesday at 50 to 56. That's the RFD Ag Market Summary for this Thursday morning. I'm Jim Taylor for the RFD Radio Network. With the Thursday AM Business Report, I'm Jim Taylor for the RFD Radio Network. New lawyers in Illinois who pass the bar will soon have the opportunity to practice law in more states. Illinois is the 30th state to adopt the universal bar exam. Prospective lawyers will take the new test in Illinois for the first time next July. Drivers in northwest Illinois are finally able to go straight from Savannah to Sebula, but not in their cars. The ferry connecting the two Mississippi River towns started running earlier this week. There's supposed to be a new bridge connecting Savannah, Illinois and Sebula, Iowa, but it's still under construction on the Iowa side. The ferry is free but can only carry 15 cars and 82 people across the river at one time. Producer prices surged more than expected last month. The Labor Department reporting this week that wholesale prices increased 0.5% last month. Analysts forecast a 0.3% gain. Wholesale prices are up 3.1% over the past 12 months. That's the biggest one-year increase in more than 6 years. Rising interest rates are putting a lid on mortgage applications. The Mortgage Bankers Association reports total loan applications fell 1.5% last week. Refinance applications dropped 2%, and applications for loans to buy homes fell by the same percentage. The national average interest rate for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage ticked up 8 basis points to 4.83%. And a federal judge is approving the massive merger between AT&T and Time Warner. The Justice Department sued to block AT&T's $85 billion buyout of Time Warner, citing antitrust concerns and possible higher prices for consumers. AT&T's lawyers said the company hopes to close the deal on or before June 20th. I'm Jim Taylor for the RFD Radio Network.
This is the RFD Livestock Report. I'm Rita Frazier. More highlights and conversations from the FFA convention this week in Springfield. Caught up with members of the Vandalia FFA who attended. Dalton Witten just graduated as senior member of the Vandalia FFA.
The highlight has definitely been the last 2 years as we received a new advisor coming in my junior year. Our junior year, she helped kids that hadn't had the chance to do a record book actually backdate and get caught up so we could receive our state degrees last year. And then just this last spring here, I was elected to serve as the Section 19 president, and I get installed tomorrow in the 6th General Session.
What kind of skills did you obtain while in FFA? And talk a little bit about your record books and a little bit about your major.
My record book was on beef production. I worked on my grandpa's farm where we keep a herd of about 30 registered Hereford cows. We do a cow-calf operation, and then during the summer, I go ahead and present those animals at county fairs along with the Illinois State Junior Preview Show, which is just for the Hereford exhibitors. Throughout the record book, I learned a lot about how to properly care for livestock and how to keep them up to date on shots, along with how to do the registry and pedigrees, just how the EPD stuff works. I'm going to school to major in animal science and ag business, to hopefully going to sell feed and go into like the animal nutrition side of things. Throughout FFA, I've learned a lot about stepping up and taking a leadership position. Throughout life, you really have to have a leader within a group, and so FFA teaches you a lot of leadership qualities and how to be an effective leader without being overpowering to the group that you're leading. And it's just a lot of important life lessons. FFA is no longer just cows, sows, and plows. It's a lot of more of life skills such as public speaking, job interview, but we also still have like the livestock judging, the dairy judging. So it's a better mixture of both to better help balance kids when they come out of FFA.
Wonderful. Well, we wish you the very best of luck. It sounds like you have a good future ahead of you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Also from the Vandalia FFA, Nick Wallerman is with us. Nick, tell us about you and your involvement.
So my involvement is a lot like Dalton's story. I was in FFA all 4 years, and our first 2 years we had advisors who were just provisional ag teachers, and they were there to keep the program alive, but they couldn't give us the time to really develop the program. And then my junior year, our current advisor, Mandy Totten, came in, and she really flipped the program upside down, and we started going to a whole lot of different contests, and we had 3 state degree recipients in our first year, 3 different state CDEs, and now just 2 years into it, we went to 7 state contests, and personally, I competed at 2 of them here at this convention this year.
One last area, and that is your advisor. You've mentioned her several times, Mandy Totten. Tell us about what she's meant to your chapter.
Mrs. Totten has meant the world to us. We could not ever say that we could be where we are today without her. There's no way. The first 2 years, we went to 1 contest each year most of the time. And then, like I said earlier, 3 state and then 7 state in just 2 years. So she's really came in and brought in a passion for the FFA with her, and her passion and dedication to each of the students, spending hours before and hours after school worrying about us and preparing us and just wanting us to do well has really spread to each of the people. And we've been able to see a chapter grow all because of the effort she's put in.
Nick Wallerman, Dalton Witten, members of the Vandalia FFA, and congratulations to Mandy Totten, the advisor for that chapter. This is the RFD Livestock Report. I'm Rita Frazier. This is Inside Agriculture on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Rita Frazier. Dr. Matt Montgomery is a field agronomist with Pioneer. He talks about scouting soybean fields in central and west central Illinois.
Right now, honestly, off to a really good start. We've had some very good conditions, honestly, very little disease. Stand-wise, probably the biggest thing we ran into is just here and there having maybe some early season stand issues, trying to get stand established. Sometimes maybe some wet conditions from cover crops or things like that impeding our ability to get the crop in the ground, keeping that slot closed, those kind of things. But honestly, off to a really good start. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens from here on out. Will we have the kind of rainfall that we need as we approach August to really set ourselves up for yield? Will we have another year, Rita, where early soybean planting really pays off? We know that that's been a trend, and we know that earlier soybean planting has benefited us in the state. Some people got very ambitious and went super early this year. It'll be very interesting to see if that pays off or not, if that April planting that can really set them up for the higher yield.
Matt, any golden nuggets for us?
We are in the state going to do, University of Illinois is going to do it, and Pioneer's participating some as well. Another soybean cyst nematode survey. It's been a long time, I think a dozen years plus, and we really did a big area-wide soybean cyst nematode survey to figure out what HG types we're looking at least, if nothing else, give us a nice backdrop to talk about rotating around varieties, maybe emphasizing in the industry again that we would love to get some other options for soybean cyst nematode resistance. That is still, regardless of all the other things we talk about, the number one yield-reducing pest for soybean in the state of Illinois. It's a big one that we need to have our target on for managing.
Dr. Matt Montgomery, field agronomist with a look inside agriculture.
Today we decided to walk to school. The light counted. 15, 14,
41, 31, 13. We
took a left on Carroll Street. Danny's smart, but he gets distracted.
I
realized he forgot his homework. I hope he doesn't have another bad day at school.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. That's why there's Understood.org, a free resource for the parents of the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues. Go from misunderstanding to Understood.org. Brought to you by Understood and the Ad Council.
Good morning, this is Dan Hicks from Freeze Otis Weather with the early morning ag weather update on the RFD Radio Network for this Thursday morning. Significant rainfall was somewhat spotty across the Midwest the past 24 hours, generally occurring in some areas east and southeast of Illinois, and also in a few western parts of the region. Daytime highs in the upper 70s to near 90 were fairly common across the Midwest on Wednesday afternoon. A warm front will be lifting northeastward across the Midwest during the next 24 hours. This will bring some scattered showers and thunderstorms to Illinois and surrounding areas. Coverage of significant rain, though, will be somewhat spotty. Most rainfall amounts that do occur will be in the 10th to half-inch range, with a few isolated heavier. Daytime highs in Illinois today will be mostly in the 80s. Some warmer and more humid conditions will start to build back into the western and southwestern Midwest this afternoon, and will spread farther north and east tomorrow into the weekend. Daytime highs will warm into the upper 80s and 90s across the Midwest through the first part of next week. During this time, best thunderstorm chances will shift more to the far northern Midwest, generally staying north of Illinois for a 2 or 3 day period. Looking ahead into next week, it looks like this warmer and drier pattern will start to break down early to mid next week, and a cool front will slowly sink southward across the region by about Monday night through Wednesday of next week, gradually bringing some cooler temperatures farther south and increasing chances for some showers and thunderstorms across the region once again. Looking ahead into the 6 to 10 day time frame, right now it looks like rainfall could average fairly close to normal across the Midwest overall, but amounts will likely be quite variable in any given state. Temperatures will continue to cool somewhat, but should average near to above normal across most of the Midwest. I'm Dan Hicks from Freeze Notice Weather.
Hey, Steve Harvey here for the Illinois Broadcasters Association, and in a recent survey, the Illinois Emergency Management Agency was asked to name the top 5 items that every Illinois family needs to have in their home's emergency disaster kit. Check out these answers. Water, can't live without it. Number 2, non-perishable food. Well, after all, a man gotta eat, right? Number 3, weather radio, and make sure you got fresh batteries too. Number 4, flashlight, even more reason to have fresh batteries on hand. Number 5, first aid kit. Look, there's no reason to feud over what items to put in your family's emergency disaster kit. Get the answers and more at ready.illinois.gov. That's ready.illinois.gov.
Sponsored by the Illinois Emergency Management Agency, aired in cooperation with the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
From CBC News, The World This Hour, I'm Danielle Capelli. It was a stunning critique of Donald Trump, and it came from Canada's foreign minister. Chrystia Freeland was speaking at a Washington event last night where she accepted a Diplomat of the Year award from Foreign Policy magazine, and Katie Simpson was there.
Facts matter.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister did not use Donald Trump's name, but there was no question about who she was calling out. Chrystia Freeland stood in front of a packed hotel ballroom in downtown Washington to deliver her blunt assessment of the president's chaotic style of governance.
No one will benefit from this beggar thy neighbor dispute.
She called American tariffs on steel and aluminum pure protectionism and warned about the collapse of the current rules-based global order if protectionist policies continue to grow.
They are a naked example of the United States putting its thumb on the scale in violation of the very rules it helped to write.
Freeland will repeat that sentiment today when she meets with U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the U.S. will not ease sanctions on North Korea until it gets rid of its nuclear weapons. North Korean state media is claiming President Trump agreed to sanctions relief at the summit in Singapore with its leader, Kim Jong-un. Pompeo was speaking after meeting in Seoul today with his South Korean and Japanese counterparts.
As the President said, this will be a process and not an easy one. Staying closely aligned with our allies, the Republic of Korea and Japan, will be critical to the success of that outcome.
Pompeo also says Kim is committed to denuclearization. Meanwhile, there was a rare handshake at the Korean demilitarized zone today. Cameras captured 2 top generals from North and South Korea as they reached across the table and shook hands. The 2 sides are holding military talks, the first in more than a decade. Both nations recently agreed to cease hostile acts and work towards officially ending the Korean War. Here at home, a Hamilton, Ontario jury heard tape of a dramatic 911 call at the trial of a white man charged with shooting and killing an Indigenous man. The case is drawing comparisons to the recent Colton Boushie trial in Saskatchewan. Dan Takama reports.
Peter Cahill doesn't deny that he shot John Stiers, a 29-year-old member of the Six Nations of the Grand River, but he's pleading not guilty. Court has heard how on the night of February 4th, 2016, Cahill and his wife were woken up around 3 a.m. by a loud banging noise and realized someone was trying to steal their truck. The Crown says Cahill loaded a shotgun, headed outside, and fired twice. On Wednesday, jurors heard a frantic 911 call that was made moments after the shooting.
It was pitch black, and it looked like he was literally about to shoot me, so I shot him.
The trial is being closely watched by members of the Six Nations of the Grand River. It raises many of the same legal issues involved in the trial of the man who was accused of killing Colton Boushie, an Indigenous man. A reportedly all-white jury in Saskatchewan reached a not guilty verdict. Dan Takama, CBC News, Hamilton.
And finally, security is tight in Moscow today as the World Cup begins. The opening ceremony will take place this morning, and then the first match between Russia and Saudi Arabia gets underway. It's the first of a month of matches that will capture the attention of most of the sports world. But as Chris Brown reports, for Russia, hosting the tournament is an exercise in soft power.
For Russia, this really amounts to something of an I told you so moment. A lot of people wanted FIFA to strip Russia of this tournament, especially after Vladimir Putin was blamed for the shooting down of Malaysian airline flight MH17 for annexing Crimea and for poisoning a former Russian spy in London. But for Russia, this event has always been about showing the West that, look, you can't isolate us. We can thrive in spite of economic sanctions and all those political controversies, and look around. Everyone is having a great time.
And that is your world this hour.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts now.
A possible World Series preview in the Bronx. I'm Rob Bushka. The Yankees and Nationals played in what could be described as October baseball as Washington prevailed 5-4 at Yankee Stadium, thanks in part to phenom Juan Soto, who homered twice.
Swinging a high drive to right center field deep. Forget about it. Juan Soto has another home run at Yankee Stadium. That one's out of sight. He clears the Yankees bullpen and gives the Nationals the lead.
Nationals radio, Soto joined some impressive company such as Andrew Jones and Ken Griffey Jr., who both homered twice in the same game at the stadium at the young age of 19. New York enters the weekend a game back of the Red Sox, who beat last place Baltimore. We know the Astros are solid, defending world champs, but it's the Mariners who sit atop the AL West.
Swinging a drive deep to left field. Going. Goodbye baseball. A walk-off line drive. 2-run home run for Mitch Haniger to win it. Holy smokes, the Mariners beat the Angels.
M's radio, Seattle walks off and sweeps the Angels 8-6. They are 20 games above 500. Elsewhere, the Braves blanked the Mets. Rays shut out the Blue Jays. Brewers the same with the Cubs. It's the Pirates over the Diamondbacks. Rockies beat the Phillies. Tigers upend the Twins. Marlins swept the Giants. White Sox beat the Indians. Royals fell to the Reds. It's the Padres doubling up the Cardinals. Astros hammered the A's. And the Dodgers in 11 walked off Texas. Golf, the U.S. Open, its second of 4 majors, kicks off from Shinnecock Hills in Southampton. Phil Mickelson and Jordan Spieth tee off at 8 Eastern. Tiger Woods at 1:45. Cobra's Race to the Finals gives you and a guest a chance to win an all-expense-paid VIP race experience with a meet and greet with NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace at the season finale in Miami. Visit BubbaWinsWithCobra.com to enter. This is NBC Sports Radio.
This is Betty White. I know you don't need one more thing to worry about, but listen. High blood pressure can cause kidney damage, blindness, heart attack, stroke, and you can have high blood pressure even if you feel all right. 1 in 7 adults has it, but it's easy to get your blood pressure checked, and you can treat it if it is too high. So don't worry about it. Don't ignore it. Just see your doctor and check it out.
For your free booklet, visit the Will Rogers Institute at wrinstitute.org and find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Let's check Ag News on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yonke. Another down day for grain and soybean futures. Corn was down just a little bit Wednesday, but soybeans close to 20 cents lower, as was wheat. Soybean market in particular has struggled of late. More than 30 cents this week in losses. Almost $1 lost since Memorial Day. Dale Dirkholz is senior analyst at AgriVisor.
We're coming up against a possible deadline, maybe even on Friday, where Trump could maybe impose some tariffs on stuff coming out of China, and if that occurs, we'd expect some kind of a quick retaliatory move from China to go ahead and initiate tariffs on soybeans, etc. So there's a lot of nervousness, a lot of angst in the industry about what's going to happen here. We haven't really heard much for a week and a half or so now, but that really played heavily into the game here today.
Dale Dirkholz at AgriVisor. Dow Jones is reporting Canada, Mexico, and the EU are set to impose tariffs of their own. Yesterday's losses, by the way, put soybeans at their lowest level in the last 9 months. DC News, the Senate Agriculture Committee passed the bipartisan farm bill in less than 3 hours, adding just a handful of amendments. RFD's Washington correspondent Matt Kay says it was a stark contrast to the purely partisan effort on the House Ag Committee.
Only one senator, Iowa Republican Chuck Grassley, voted no on the farm bill that lacks his farm manager payment limits and includes hemp legalization. He says the judiciary panel he chairs has jurisdiction over. The 20-1 farm bill vote was in stark contrast to the GOP-only backed House bill that failed on the House floor and reflects the urgency to bring some certainty to a struggling farm economy. Senate Ag Chair Pat Roberts.
Certainty and predictability, especially during these very difficult times. This is absolutely paramount to any other concern.
Top Senate Ag Democrat Debbie Stabenow.
Over the past year and a half, we've put our political differences aside and focused on listening to people who have a stake in the Farm Bill. From farmers and rural leaders to conservationists and food advocates, we heard loud and clear that they need the certainty of a 5-year farm bill.
Adding to that certainty, Senate GOP leader and Ag member Mitch McConnell of Kentucky promised swift floor action on the bill that includes his amendment to legalize industrial hemp grown in his home state.
We'll turn to the farm bill before the 4th of July, and I'm hopeful that the House will get to theirs. They probably look a little different from ours, but I'm hoping they'll get to theirs shortly.
Possibly next week after a GOP deal on immigration reform votes. Senate Ag approved several Farm Bill amendments while delaying others for more work and possible floor action. Passed were riders to open trade promotion programs for ag exports to Cuba, promote biomass, carbon, and biogas use, improve the renamed Dairy Risk Coverage Program, and increase farm loan limits. An amendment to boost CRP acreage, another 1.25 million acres, beyond a 1 million acre hike already in the bill, was withdrawn, as were added improvements to the ARC and PLC programs. For the RFD Radio Network, Matt Kay on Capitol Hill.
In a statement, Illinois Farm Bureau President Rich Giebert said, quote, Illinois Farm Bureau applauds the bipartisan work of the U.S. Senate Ag Committee in advancing its farm bill. At this time of economic uncertainty with farm income, our members need the risk management programs included in the farm bill more than ever. Get more news online anytime at farmweeknow.com. DeLoss Yonke, RFD Radio Network.